making the right adjustments right now based on your goal. If your goals are to make a big dent, this is why we say financial freedom is 2 to 7 years away. If you don't want to cut your lifestyle right now, hey, we're going to be looking at 5, 6, 7 years potentially, depending on your exact situation. But if you're willing to make some adjustments and have some good conversations with you and your partner, 2 years, you're going to blink and we're going to be there.
How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another edition of the Tactical Empire. We are here with Sean today, and we're heading into level 2 of the 7 levels of financial freedom.
That's right. Not much, man. Welcome back to our 7-part series on our flagship product, the 7 levels of financial freedom, which Jeff created a few years ago, which has been highly impactful in his life, in my life, and the life of the men in the inner circle. So we're going to be providing value to everyone that's listening to our show. We appreciate you coming in. So here you go. This is a little gift to us. If you haven't listened to episode 1, go back. Level 1 was You Are the Asset, which didn't quite focus on finances. It focused on you. Now let's go into level 2. This is the first layer, financial focus for the 7 levels. Jeff, level 2 is figure out your BAM, B-A-M, which is an acronym for bare ass minimum, which I absolutely love. That is definitely a phrase that connects to our type of client in the Tactical Empire inner circle. So what made you throw in, calculate, and figure out your BAM, bare ass minimum there for level 2?
Just because I think it's the best benchmark to set for passive income, because what this whole 7 levels is the impetus of this entire 7 levels is the pursuit of freedom ultimately. And I also wanted you to understand lifestyle creep. Lifestyle creep is very, very real. Okay. So let's say I make $5,000 a month in my job. If I produce $1,000 a month of passive income to butt up against that, I now have $6,000 a month. Right. And so I don't want expansion of your lifestyle to then expand and absorb your passive income so that we cannot use it to build and build and build and snowball. So where BAM came from, it was to understand that is your basic level 1 of your benchmark of freedom. So you want to produce that bare ass minimum with your assets alone. And so you think about working a 9-to-5 W-2 job, or your wife or your spouse, whatever, and you have the ability to reach that BAM with just your assets alone and the income they're bringing in. When you reach that level, it changes you legitimately. It changes your mentality. It changes the way you show up for work. It changes the way you show up in your job, how you produce, because start sticking your toe in. It's a world of choice and your choices. Because do you want your wife to work anymore? Does she want to work anymore? Whatever. We've seen a variety of things as we've coached this program and this framework to spouses that used to work full time, backing off to very, very part time because they like their job, but they don't want to do it every single day and be Monday through Friday, 40 hours a week. And so it's given the family choice and a little bit of breathing room, right? And so do you like your job? Is it time to go full time with your own venture? Maybe you had this thing going on the side and now you've reached your BAM with your passive investments. And now you can take the leap of, hey, we can bridge the gap and I should go full on into this venture I'm doing, my own thing or whatever. It's also an attainable goal because we draw up these master plans on one of the exercises we do in the group is write down every single thing you possibly want and then put a price tag to it, right? What does it cost on a monthly basis for your dream house, your dream car, your dream life, your dream travel? How much money do you want to put in the savings account each month? How much do you want to be investing? And we break it all down to a monthly rate of what you need to live that life. Because oftentimes it's way actually less than you actually think it is. Because it's supposed to be this pie in the sky number, oh, we need $100 million to do that. And when you actually do the math on it, it's really $40,000 a month. And you're like, holy shit. Now that might be a huge bridge to get across, right? But it's still not fucking $100 million.
That's right.
And like the reason that the BAM is so important though is because it's like your first step of freedom. So like then if your boss comes in and fires you on Friday and you've met your BAM, you're not fucking in like full blown 5-alarm fire, like holy fuck, I'm gonna see my kids next week when this paycheck stops, right? And so it just gives you a different lease on life, more comfort. It gives your spouse more security, which is what we're always striving for. And there's just, and it gives you a win that you can attain. If I came to you and I said, Sean, I need you to buy short-term rentals to the tune of $40,000 a month of passive income, you would be like, fuck that. It's like if I brought you a rucksack that was 100 pounds and I said, hey, have you worked out? And you're like, never in my life. And I'm like, walk 100 miles with this on your back. Absolutely not. But if I said, walk to that tree that's 15 feet away, you'd be like, I could do that probably. And so it's starting at a place that you can see and visualize and chase and get to. And like that's the intent behind what it is. Plus the understanding of like you are now free. And like you need to understand that like you've now bought yourself through diligent focus and work that you've done and saving and whatever has gone into it, that you've bought yourself the freedom of choice to an extent. Now, what would it do if we 10x'd that?
Yeah, we definitely didn't bury the lead on why BAM is important. I think you made it very clear that this is our first level. This is our first goal of financial freedom, which comes into play later on in the 7th level. So we will circle back to BAM when we're looking at cash flowing investments. But you nailed it on the head there when you said, you know, when you're telling the numbers, like if you have $5,000 of BAM or income and you supplement that with $1,000, that's a 20% increase in cash flow to your family a month. And if you don't have lifestyle creep to fill that $1,000, which is why you need a job for your money, Parkinson's law will kick in. You need a job for that $1,000. How hard and how long would you have to work to get a 20% raise at your job? And you said something else there about if you got fired, then you have this backstop. And this is why we're adamant about people taking action, because people view what we do, investing in real estate, investing in cash flow assets, as risky. And we just come at it from the 180-degree view from that statement and say, no, what you're doing is risky. Fully relying on whether it's a W-2 job or just your sole, maybe you're the business owner. If your only source of income is your business, even though it's your greatest opportunity to grow, you could 20x your 20 increase your profit by 20% this year with the right moves in your business. So it's still something that should be your focus, but you have to start obtaining other assets in case the unknown and unknowable happens in your business. And so what we're saying is it's not risky to start buying a cash flow asset. And it's not to get that $40,000 a month. It's to cover the 4 that you say you need or the 8 that you say you need. Now, what we did skip over was defining what constitutes an expense for your bare ass minimum. So we told the people why. No, you're great. We told the people why, which I think was awesome because I think it immediately told people, hey, this is actually the first task, financial task you need to become cognizant and aware of. And the reason why is because if you want choice. So let's go back because people struggle with this because when they're working with me on their personal finances, they text me literally an expense and tell me if it's BAM or not. What do you constitute as an expense that would fall into the bare ass minimum?
Yeah, this one is a little blurry to an extent, but like it's definable though. It's anything that you have to pay for to absolutely survive. And I include like housing, power, like all your utilities, obviously. But also you have to really, what we do is say, you don't have to like go Dave Ramsey and sell your car and do all that shit. Like I build that in if you've got a car and a car payment. You don't necessarily have to go, because I'm not big on going scorched earth. Like I don't need to do that. I'm big on like, okay, here we are, we've done this. Now, if you want to go and say, hey, we'd be to our BAM that much faster if I traded in this truck and I got something we could pay cash for. Whatever.
I think it's a mental thing. I don't mind people going scorched earth mentally, but we're not going to force you to do it actual physically like he would. But I like to go there mentally just to see what that number was.
The exercise is good. It's good because it's like, hey, if all this shit stopped tomorrow, what would we actually need And you got to think, I think about like, who's going to come repossess your stuff? Like, would they take your car? Would they take your RV? Would they take your house? Would they take like all this stuff? Then you, as a husband and wife or whatever, could step through the exercise and say, well, if we did that, we'd sell our $100,000 truck or whatever, right? Like, we don't need that if this were the circumstance. And so really it's just like, how much food do we need to survive and feed our family? They call that $1,000, or in this economy, fucking $3,000. But whatever that number is, like, maybe we're not going to eat all organic if this situation occurs, or maybe we're not going to spend fucking $500 a month on berries, like shit like that. People that you do during good times that you could recognize we would do something different if this were occurring. Okay. So like this, let's say $3,000 is your grocery budget. Like, what would you actually get it to if you didn't have an income? $1,200, $1,500. Let's just cut it in half, right? And then your house with all your PITI, taxes, insurance, all that shit to keep it going, your utilities as well, because you're going to keep that on. And so like, what is that number that allows you to live this life minus like not eating out, not vacationing, not doing all the frivolous lifestyle spending, like cut all that stuff out and then get yourself a number of what it takes to live and survive? Because you got to think about this. And if you go through this exercise, how long would it truly last until you figured something else out?
Right.
Like, you'd have another thing going in a short amount of time, most likely. But you could say, okay, well, my bill's maybe $4,000 a month, like my bare minimum. That's housing, that's food, that's this one vehicle that we would keep, and like whatever, right? So it allows you to really go there to just determine how much you would need if the lights completely went out, right? And you had no income source.
Yeah, we certainly wouldn't have our kids in private school. I would probably lose a little bit of muscle mass because I would not be buying as many protein shakes. And yeah, the strawberries, blueberries, and blackberries that are uberly expensive at the grocery store. We'd have a little bit less fruit budget, but we would definitely be utilizing the garden in our backyard that we just so happen to overgrow the tomatoes every single year. But it is good, man. Like, and people always find, again, we're not going to cut our way to wealth. We're not believers in that. But you'll very quickly find a handful of expenses that you guys are spending money on that you no longer utilize. So obviously during this exercise, you will start cutting some of the expenses that you see your family spending money on, but that's not the goal. The goal isn't to sit there and scrutinize with your spouse on who spends money on what. The goal is just to figure out your number. I have no problem if you and your spouse are making $12,000 a month and you're spending 10 grand. I don't care what it's made of. I don't care what it's made of. But if you figure out that your BAM is 5, I'm not going to tell you to cut out the extra 5. You might decide to cut out 1,000 of it, or you might decide to cut out none because you're still setting aside 2 grand a month on that delta. I'm happy about that. But the BAM comes into play when we start looking at cash flowing assets. The BAM comes into play when we start making money moves. And yes, as you start to create the psychological positive effect of choice. I think, you said earlier that you'd become a different person. And there's a few things that went through my head there. Like, and one was just a visual. Like, if you're a W-2 worker and you start creating passive income from yourself, I like have this visual scene of like, you're just strutting in the work differently, not FU money. It's not FU money. So you're not going to walk in and just quit today. This sense of empowerment. I think what it is another premise that we teach is when you start taking control and the reward that you're going to get is that choice factor. You're now recognizing that you've been abdicating the growth of your future and how far away your goals are to other people. I'm shoving money here because this person told me to, or when I got hired, they told me to set up this 401k and I'll be good when I'm 65. Well, you abdicated financial control for your future. When you start putting that into your own environment again, and you start feeling the rewards, not when you're 65, but when you're 35, 45, or 55, you're going to become a different person. You're going to walk into work differently. You're probably going to stop putting up with some shit that you're putting up with because you now have neglected or you now have taken back control. And I like that. That's what that's about. So we're going very quickly psychologically from just know your number to what these things are actually providing for you. And the freedom that you will get is worth it. So ladies and gentlemen, bare ass minimum print off. The easiest way to do it is print off your credit card statements, print off your bank statements, identify the things that you know what you spent the money on, and just highlight them, man. I highlight everything that's absolutely mandatory in our life. I highlight it in green. When I'm doing this exercise for the first time, things that are questionable, I'll highlight in yellow that we would probably get rid of, and things that are just completely unnecessary now and definite cutouts if shit hit the fan for a 30 or 90-day period, I'd highlight those in red. You can very quickly figure out how much money we need. But start with the big ticket items. Start with your mortgage, your car, your utilities, your insurances, and your food budget. And other than that, you're going to very quickly see. And it's kind of amazing, Jeff. Like back when I was a high school teacher and I was pulling $2,300 after taxes on a monthly basis. Like that was only 10 years ago. Like I'm 35 now. I was 25. So I would have been in my third or fourth year of teaching and I was pulling $2,300 after taxes. That's my mortgage payment on my house now. Yeah. Like what the hell? My rent back then was like $450. So it's like just like 10 years and you hit the nail on the head. Like we're talking if you were thinking $1,000 for something last year, like now it's $2,000, it's $3,000. Things are not going to get cheaper. This is why we said on a recent episode, this is why you need a growth mindset, regardless if you're someone that thinks about more. It's not about more. It's about outpacing what's happening in the world. And if you're just waiting for your company to give you a raise, it is a mathematical fact that your incomes are not rising at the pace of inflation. So everyone wants to talk about big, sexy cash flowing assets, but that is not level 1. It is not level 2. It is not level 3. You have to work through the levels in order. And level 2, ladies and gentlemen, is your bare ass minimum. Figure out what expenses they are, figure out what the numbers are, figure out that overarching number, and we will get you to reach your BAM. That is your first goal for your passive income cash flowing asset investments down the road. But we have a little bit more work until we get there. Jeff, anything else about BAM, or do you want to send the people out?
Nope, that's it. Establish your BAM, understand where you're at. It helps you. Like we talk about intentionality all the time. This step is really truly just about getting intentional with knowing your numbers, and whatever you do with them, like it is up to you. I think people have a tendency to understand that they're leaving some potential on the table when they do this exercise, because they're like, holy shit, we spend whatever, in your example, $5,000 of lifestyle spending because the BAM was $5,000 and they were spending an additional $5,000 a month. Like that couple is only saving $2,000 a month. But like going through this exercise may just be a wake up call to where they could save an extra $2,000 a month and turn that into $4,000, which would pour gasoline on their savings, investing, and everything else. And they're still spending a significant amount of money on lifestyle stuff.
Yeah. So you're going from $24,000 a year saved to 48. And think about that in the sense of like the cap on 401k investing is like 21 or 22 grand. So if you could have an extra $48,000 just because you adjusted a few of your family expenses, you can move the needle way faster with that 48 grand in your control, especially when we start getting cash flow assets that pay you more income today. So yeah, I mean, we're not going to cut our way to wealth, but making the right adjustments right now based on your goals. If your goals are to make a big dent, this is why we say financial freedom is 2 to 7 years away. If you want to, if you don't want to cut your lifestyle right now, hey, we're going to be looking at 5, 6, 7 years potentially, depending on your exact situation. But if you're willing to make some adjustments and have some good conversations with you and your partner, 2 years, you're going to blink and we're going to be there. 2020 was only four years ago, and it felt like yesterday. So time's flying by, man. But start here, calculate your BAM, and check out the next few episodes for the next levels when things start to get real enticing and real sexy.
Thanks, guys. Love it. See you next week.